Welcome to MC Talk episode 3. We're here to discuss the future of the beverage industry with Ben and Erik. Ben, why don't you tell us a little quick background about what you do and who you are, and we'll move on to Erik.
Sure. Ben Larson, CEO of Vertosa. We make active ingredients for infused beverages, amongst other form factors. I'm also on the board of the Cannabis Beverage Association, a vice chair at the National Cannabis Industry Association, and involve myself with an alphabet soup of other organizations. One that this guy's involved in.
Absolutely. We can talk about that later. All right, Erik, give us a quick background.
Quick rundown. So got into the cannabis space in 2009. Opened up one of the first dispensaries in Boulder, Colorado. Quickly shifted out of retail into products. Founded Keef Brands with my brother and some friends in January of 2010. We've been punching Keef nationally and internationally ever since. So currently available in 14 regulated markets all over Canada and every province, and now 9 or 10 states through the D9 channel.
All right, the conversation today is beverage. We're all involved, some more than others. You know, as we talk about beverage, hemp versus, marijuana, since you guys have done both and I have not, what is the big difference, each with the issues on both sides? So marijuana versus hemp and the, from a regulated market to a, whatever you want to call the hemp market, the unregulated market.
In certain states.
Certain states, yes. I try to write as much statute as I can. It's really hard.
It's becoming more regulated quickly.
Yes, very quickly.
But hopefully less regulated than the industry we've been working in for a long time.
Right.
So, I think obviously right out the gate, centralized manufacturing and being able to leverage pre-existing distribution channels via traditional adult beverage channels.
Right.
That's probably the biggest difference right out the gate, which is a huge difference.
I've looked into the numbers very briefly, just looking at some public companies, and compared to us or other companies that I know, it's about 8 times more in humans per dollar of revenue.
Yeah, 100%. For example, obviously with the 14 regulated markets we're in the United States, we have a canning facility in every single one of them. Some obviously states bordering each other.
Right.
So we have 3 in the mountain region alone. So it's definitely burdensome from a CapEx standpoint, from a human capital standpoint. It's a bear to manage and deal with. Yeah. Not to mention obviously the differing regulations in every market. So it's a lot to deal with. Obviously, alcohol has to deal with some of that as well. There are 50 states with 50 different alcohol laws. That being said, it was done a little smarter than this, and you don't have 50 different labels, luckily.
Yeah, one of the main differences is you manufacture central point alcohol.
Exactly.
50 distributors is different than 50 manufacturers.
Well, 100%. Beverage is built on economies of scale, right? It's like you're getting those cans out as cheaply as possible in massive quantities, and you can't do that if you're having to run 15 facilities.
It's definitely challenging. I mean, Colorado, if we could do it all, the mountain region from here, it would be amazing.
Right.
We do volume-wise just in Colorado in the regulated space, well over 1 million units every month or every year. And that, ranging in potency from 10 to 100 million, or actually 500 milligrams.
Hey, next session's coming right around, Erik. You're going to be working on that.
Exactly, man. So, it's coming, and obviously we're going to be working on it here in Colorado to hopefully open up the channel beyond 1 milligram.
1.5.
1.5. I guess 1 milligram is what California's trying to do. Yeah. So, I think that it definitely, by far and away, that's been the biggest issue, and it's you can't get past it. And it's been the roadblock for most cannabis beverage companies over the years. I mean, we co-pack in probably 4 or 5 locations now across the U.S. for other cannabis beverage brands, and I see that increasing as we continue to go. Obviously, unless we can figure out a real channel to be able to bring these two together and start to get the efficiencies that traditional businesses get to enjoy.
Yeah, and Ben, real quick, you touched on it. Economies of scale, right? So, you've probably experienced more, both of you guys have, but you've experienced a lot of pain because if the cost is so much, why would anyone buy a $4 beverage when they can buy a gram for $10?
Well,
you're getting what, 300 times more milligrams or something like that.
I mean, not only that, you have to consider the consumer, right? Ever since I got into this category, I knew that beverage wasn't going to be a great competitor when you're thinking about it as a cannabis alternative. People like to smoke, people like to vape, they're used to their gummies. You insert a beverage that has a different kind of price economics, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And that's why you hear this perpetual, oh, it's only 1%, 2% of the market. But then all of a sudden you take it in the mainstream market where you're talking about an adult beverage alternative, and all of a sudden it's starting to click, and you're starting to see real sales. In Minnesota last year, we saw $180 million in low-dose beverage sales. Yep. And that's because it's being offered next to its non-alcoholic or alcohol analog.
The numbers that I'm hearing are almost unbelievable. I mean, people talking about it like 20% of traditional alcohol sales. I don't know what segment that's in. And I know it's a headline, but
yeah,
I mean, call a quarter of that. Like, say it's 5%. I mean,
you're talking about $1 billion plus industry right away. More than
tens of billions easily. I mean, my guess is that it's already worth multiple billions of dollars. And I think in the next year, as more alcohol distributors bring it on, you know, who we've probably all talked to recently. I mean, some of them are this close. So
the biggest ones in the world. I mean, you know, for example, obviously I can say this because, you know, we work with them, but in Canada, you know, we've been lucky enough to work with one of the Southern Glazers sub companies because it's federally legal.
Right.
And they handle all of our distribution up there, and it's been fantastic. I mean, it's still not, it's quasi-regulated. It's not the numbers that we'd expect out of liquor stores, but just being able to centrally manufacture you know, with Tilray in the Toronto area is the unit economics are so much better. Once again, making it a more approachable product on a per milligram basis, which is where we really have to be, especially if you're in a dispensary. You know, once again, it's been our big. I think we're one of the only beverages that sells in tens of millions of units in the regulated space. I don't think anybody else does, and it's taken us 15 years to get to that point. So
I didn't even know Canada still existed, to be quite honest.
Yeah,
there's still 30 million people up there. I think.
Still, man, they are.
So Ben, just, you know, get back to the question, like, what has been the biggest difference? I guess we'll change the question a little bit from, you know, marijuana regulated space to now being in this space. I mean, what does it do for, you know, your company, and, you know, how much easier is it?
Oh, man.
You know, I'm good at these questions.
Easier? I mean, we still operate across the regulated markets. Right. Like, our ethos from the very beginning was that it's one plant and it's one consumer.
Right.
Everything else in the middle is kind of our problem. You know, like, we try to create continuity between all these supply chains so that we can work with companies like Keef and offer the same product, whether you're in California, Michigan, operating in the D9 space, in Canada. And that's really challenging when you're having to manage all the supply chains. But the belief is that someday we're going to converge and we're going to get someday, long day from now.
Hey, I'm right here. I'm trying.
It's coming. And I think that convergence, and we've talked about it before, it's like, at the end of the day, it already should be there. We all know that. Yeah. Anybody that's ever worked with the plant from a medicinal standpoint knows that it is probably one of the greatest healing plants that's ever existed. It is a godsend. Yeah. And, you know, the more access we can give people, the better at this point. And it's finding that balance. And obviously with the Congresses that we've been dealing with since the 70s, basically, when it was banned, it's been challenging. But I think we are as close as we've ever been. And, you know, we can really thank, honestly, where hemp has pushed it. With the Farm Bill, and obviously I think what the beverage category is doing. I mean, I hear anecdotes every day of, you know, guys. I heard one yesterday, this guy who's, you know, super conservative dude that would never even talk about cannabis. Right. But now all his wife and all of her friends are bringing home cannabis drinks and he can talk about it. It's like,
well, I think, you know, in my opinion, you know, I have a unique opinion, but, you know, when Delta 8 came out, I always said it was a different consumer because it was in a different place.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more of an impulse buy at the time. And I think that'll continue with Delta 9 beverages. And, you know, it's just not, you know, marijuana to some people, right? I mean, like, there's still that stigma, especially in red states, which is where mainly hemp is, right? You know, there's still that stigma that marijuana is bad. But now that it's by a Bud Light,
it's hemp.
Yeah. But now that it's hemp and it's by a Bud Light, which is, you know, ridiculous, obviously. But, you know, we're here to, you know, roll with the punches, obviously.
We gotta do it.
Yeah. So, but it's also created, you know, in my opinion, probably double the consumer. Because I think people that are going to smoke marijuana, you know, in a lot of states are still going to buy from black market, especially red states, obviously. And, a vape or a gummy or a beverage, gummies and vapes can be behind the counter, and low dose beverages or whatever we want to call them could be by a Bud Light or in their own cooler in some cases we've discussed. But, I think they should be by the Bud Light. I don't see any difference in them in theory.
Yeah, I think it, just from the smokable standpoint, probably is why they have them there. Just because people are used to putting them behind there, and that's where all the register point of sales are. But yeah, going back to the topic of just the increased consumer base. I mean, that's when I talk with our partners on the other side, and working with some of the large retail groups, and obviously the MSOs that are out there on the cannabis side. Obviously there was a lot of protectionism, and it's still going on. That being said, there are chinks in the armor, because I think everybody realizes at the end of the day, not only is it one plant, that's easy to understand, but it is increasing an overall consumer base that in a lot of these older markets like Colorado have been capped.
Right.
Anybody that's going to go into a dispensary in Colorado has gone into the dispensary already. This is creating an entirely new customer base of people that, maybe not all of them are going to go into a dispensary, but if you take away that fear of a product and fear of a category, you may have a 20% greater increase of customer base. And I look at it as no different than a liquor store model compared to, in Colorado. You want to go buy hard liquor and high volume, go into a dispensary.
Right.
You want to go buy some gummies and some drinks and maybe some vapes, go to the gas station, go to a liquor store.
Yeah, I talked to a group in Missouri who's involved on the technically like fighting our organization down there, and we accidentally sat down together and we just had a discussion. And I go, at the end of the day, has this really affected your sales? And I think at the deep down, maybe sales might have been a little bit faster growing or whatever it was, because I'm not seriously financially impacted, which is a curious question or curious conversation. Is if dispensaries are still a fine place, which I don't agree with it, which we can dispensaries in general, but we can talk about that later. But if it's really not hurting your sales, then it truly is just a unique customer at the end of the day.
I think it's so specific to where you're standing in the country, right?
Sure, of course.
Like the California market, deeply entrenched cannabis, legalized market, huge market, and vastly overregulated.
Right.
And
which is why the black market is so large.
Right. The black market's large, but the hemp market is large, and it may be accessing a new consumer, but when products are popping up across the street, those consumers are leaving the dispensaries because it is so vastly overregulated that those products cost twice as much.
Yeah, agreed. And I don't get the tax thing. You guys know that I've only been in this from hemp, so I don't get why there's a 40% tax on it. And my question, especially in here, because I can speak about here, but
to pay out the bureaucracies.
Well, there's other ways to do that.
Regulating it. You got some pretty ones out there.
But I get what you guys had to do back in the day, right? You guys had to do what you had to do, and to get it legal, right?
Just to get it to where we are today.
Yes, but my question, and I guess we can just move to this, is in Colorado, when we were fighting for our lives here, my question to the marijuana guys was, why don't you spend this effort on deregulating and reducing the tax burden, increasing milligrams, and maybe even having a carve out for, and this is before the beverage days, really. I mean, for the big beverage, the hemp beverage days, but why don't we work on that? Because that's something that I could spend my lobby dollars behind. Is like, we're not here to keep that wall up. Yeah. So I know you guys are on the same page there, but there's no reason why a dispensary shouldn't be able to sell a 500 milligram packaged unit, in my opinion. I mean, that's the Tennessee law. Yeah. So, and that's a really red state, by the way.
100%. And if somebody wants to buy, let's be real. They can already buy a 500 milligram package. They just have to buy 5 different packages.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when you look at the overall quantity that its consumer can purchase of Keef in a dispensary, especially 10 milligrams, and you go buy like 20 cases at a time.
Yeah. It's insane. I mean, so $500.
Yeah. And to have them, once again, as regulated as they are, obviously, I think we're all in the same agreement. It doesn't make any sense. None of this is going to kill you like alcohol can kill you. There's countless other substances being pushed at Schedule 3 that'll kill you the first time you do them.
Right.
So it's a matter of time, and I think that really is what it is. We're caught in a timing issue, and right. I think the more conversations we have like this and bringing everybody together and just common sense regulation moving forward, and I love what you guys did in Tennessee. I think the rulemaking that's going on in some of these states around hemp, it's fantastic. I mean, these are states that we could have beat our head against a wall as regulated industry to get a recreational bill adult use bill done in Tennessee, and it never would have freaking happened, man. But
It's funny because in North Carolina, session just ended, and we were going to get regulated. The medical marijuana lobby attached their bill to ours, and it killed our bill. So, I mean, that's like very real, right?
It's
Again, and that
very
goes
real,
back to like that hemp, marijuana, cannabis narrative.
it's still unfortunately, there was a lot of damage done in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s by the war on drugs. And we're all overcoming that still
I
every
think I
day.
have a poster somewhere over there with some propaganda. I forget where
There
it
she
is.
is.
Yeah, it's out there.
And that's something that, we all have to understand, that at the end of the day, there is still a real enemy out there, and it's not hemp versus cannabis. There is a wall still that exists, and we've all seen it in DC and elsewhere, of people that are truly our enemies on both sides, that do not want to see this plant ever reach the light of day, reach consumers. They're big lobbies. They're entrenched industrial, complexes, both, prison complexes and others. I mean, the pharmaceutical complex, which is starting to show chinks, but there are real enemies out there.
Yep.
But where we're seeing commonality, to bring it back to beverage, is I think there's a lot of receptivity around low-dose beverage having a channel in the mainstream marketplace, red,
100%.
blue, hemp, or cannabis.
Yep.
It's knocking down the stigma, and that's like we talked about before, one person at a time, but it's doing it millions at a time through volume with alcohol behind it. And I think that's really going to be the key to this for all.
Who would have guessed that our allies would end up being
With
alcohol people?
Well, when you're seeing a 20 to 30% decrease in sales due to a whole generation not drinking, you don't really have an option but to get behind the next best thing.
But we're gonna get the biggest lobbyists behind it, like the convenience store lobbies, the
convenience
largest,
store is key.
right? And
100%.
and we know that they're receptive to this conversation, and we know that beverages is more acceptable for them to retail than some of these other form factors.
The Convenience Store Association has the 5th or 6th most employees. They represent like the most amount of employees in the nation, essentially. So they have almost more votes than anyone does.
Well, and to bring it to regulatory standpoint, it's common sense for honestly for beverage to be the tip of the spear on the full legalization front. Not even talking farm bill or anything else, due to the fact that you already have the guide rails in place.
Yeah.
With TTB, with the liquor distribution models and self-regulation and imposed regulation that is on that entire sector. So it's exciting. I think it is going to kick the door open at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I wished it would have a long time ago. I built a lot of facilities out.
This timeline has been much longer than anyone ever
Hopefully it gets so
anticipated.
big you need 8 facilities. I mean, then you win. So
Maybe just shut a couple down.
I mean, you're set up better than almost you guys both are set up better than anyone. You probably had some sleepless nights during the process.
Just a couple, man. Just a couple.
Well, I mean, when we both started, it wasn't a category.
It was not a. I mean, we were the only. I mean, Dixie dropped their drink 6 months after us, but when we launched in January of 2010, there was no other beverage.
Right.
It was just us, and it was just us for a long time. I mean, in all reality, we dropped our first sparkling water in 2016 in California and Colorado. It's been a long go, and watching this category explode has honestly been one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life.
It's crazy. It's exploded a little bit too much, in my opinion.
It's pretty wild. I mean, there's
At least the brand, yeah.
there's a lot of products.
I mean, exploded too much. Not on the distribution side, on the brand side. I mean, we manufacture beverages, and I've just been sitting back. Haven't been super involved, been a little busy with other things, but just seeing 300 brands show up in a year is like a lot.
crazy,
I mean,
man.
it's a lot. It's like Delta 8 was, honestly, at the beginning.
100%.
So it's no different. It's going to compress. And, the beverage business, for people that don't know, is a very relationship-driven business. So they're either going to
100%.
like you or they're not going to like
Yeah,
you.
if they don't like you, it can be a lot of beating your head against the wall.
Yeah.
And drinking your own product.
I've talked to quite a few people that are doing that, but we're launching our own beverage soon, so
Nice.
luckily politics and liquor kind of go hand in hand, so we have a little bit of a cheat code in that. So, but at the end of the day, it's going to be tens of billions of dollars, and I think it's going to be the next round of financial market money. So
I agree.
it's 100%. Was it going to be pharma, tobacco, or liquor, and it ended up being liquor.
Yeah,
those
liquor's-
guys will come eventually.
It just makes the most sense. Like I said, it's already got the channels ready to go to bolt right on to the regulatory framework. You don't have to deal with the USDA and a lot of the other channels that flour, smokables, and other products are going to have to deal with.
And it's got a major pull, right? Like there's softening sales in alcohol. The craft breweries were struggling big time, and I know the Minnesota breweries that have pulled this in. It's been the lifeline.
Huge boom. Yeah, our co-packers in Minnesota right now, Indeed Brewing, and they've been great. I mean, it's been just a pleasure working with them. I love seeing us. I keep going back to watching all these beverage companies come up, and just the category itself lift has been something I've wanted to see for a long time. Because, like I said, for a decade, we were the only company spending money marketing beverages. It's a big lift trying to convert people into beverage.
I said this the other day, and one of my very good friends corrected me, but I think it's going to be the biggest segment of the market. Flower is always going to compete probably, but the consumption rate of beverages is just, you'll crush a 4-pack in a day. Yeah. So, I mean, people might smoke a vape in 3 days if they're a heavy consumer, and maybe gummies is a high consumption rate, but 5 milligram beverage is, you might crush 500 of those at a barbecue.
Well, that's the thing, and I've been saying it from day one when we started the company. And that's why we went beverage. The two most commonly accepted forms of social adult interaction are smoking and drinking, and smoking on almost every level is decreasing every year with every generation. Whether it's flower, cigarettes, vapes. Vapes obviously is going up a little, but you also can't smoke everywhere.
Right.
With beverage, and our goal at this point, and we finally got there with decentralized manufacturing. You can go into liquor stores in Texas right now and buy a 4-pack of Keef $1 cheaper than you can buy a 4-pack of High Noon. Wow. That's where we wanted to be.
Yep. That's where I've told people to be, ironically.
I'm excited to see it kick off. We're shipping the first 3 trucks to that chain of stores, hopefully here in the next month. Yeah, it's gonna be fun to see how it flies down there.
Well, it highlights the opportunity to become the biggest category in the segment because it's going to have retail channels that the rest of the categories don't have. And so, if you look at it holistically, people will still be complaining that it's less than 5% in the dispensary channel, but it might be 50% of the market.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yes, that's exactly what's going to happen.
I will say it's been interesting to see because some of the newer markets that we launched, Missouri in particular, on the regulated side, we were the highest selling edible for the first 7 months. Part of it was we were one of the first in, but we're still one of the top categories, and it was because we got to get into a brand new market and educate people in beverage right away without all the noise of everything else crashing in on them at the same time. And I think it's a testament to what beverage can be. Especially in the unregulated space.
Yeah, I don't think it's a can. I think it's a will.
Yeah,
it's everyone I talk to is picking it up again or looking at it. So these are pretty big distributors, the biggest, I guess, really. So, question, shifting gears a bit, milligrams. Where you guys see most beverages in the milligram world, and then where do you think they should be?
I sell beverages of all different.
We work with a lot of brands in the space.
Yeah,
I would say that most are coming in around 10 milligrams.
It's a good dose for someone that's going to a party. 5 to 10 is you can consume more than one every time. I do see.
I can't. But
I can.
Yeah, I can.
Our sparkling waters I can because they're 1-to-1 THC to CBD. But 20 is about my max on a day here. But I think really where the milligram issue comes into effect is when you're talking about mixers, when you're talking about hard alcohol replacement type products, which we produced over the years. There has to be a way that we can differentiate it because that is the next category within the space. It's not just RTD, but it's also getting into, replacing rum, replacing tequila.
Well, and then you get crazier kegs or, draft essentially,
exactly.
The ability to put a keg. And I guess that's something that I talk about a lot. It's like, please don't cap it because you don't know what's coming.
Well,
a keg is innovative. Yeah. Can't do that.
The conversation isn't sophisticated yet.
Yeah, it needs to be a per serving basis. Yeah. And that's the way alcohol looks at it as well. It's like, okay, how many, every bar.
ABV.
Every bar knows exactly how many shots are in every single liquor bottle on their shelf because that's how they stack their revenue.
Yeah.
but the challenge is where the conversation is at and the pace of the market versus where the politicians and the legislators are at. And trying to meet them in a place that they can understand and put into enforcement. And where we're at right now is like the conversation isn't sophisticated enough, and it's not going to become sophisticated enough quickly enough because what the alcohol industry did wisely was create differentiation and form factor.
Yep.
right? You know when you're picking up a beer versus when you're picking up a 750 of alcohol. That's by design.
Yep.
But we haven't even broached that conversation with milligram counts.
Well, and it's part of it is just there is no regulation yet, and that's what I think we're all fighting for at the end of the day, because it legitimizes everything we have, and nobody wants over-regulation on everything and anything. But unfortunately, you have to have it at a certain level, because it's the way this entire economy is based, and especially adult style products that people, and unfortunately cannabis looked at that way. Yeah, it's a great point.
I mean, I think, I guess I can just talk about what we push, right? So I usually start at 50, knowing I'm going to negotiate down. 3-4 ml vapes, and then anything under 10 can be not behind the counter.
Yeah,
that's simple. And then there's not a package cap, essentially, because I don't think we can say it. I mean, I always say this story. I know someone that takes 800 milligrams a day.
Yep.
You're going to tell them to go fuck themselves, essentially? I don't want to do that.
I mean, we sold. Obviously, we still hold our medical license here in Colorado. We have a 500 milligram single serve drink that we sell 5,000 of every month in Colorado, and we do it for that exact reason. People going through chemotherapy, people going through some of these diseases that this is being used for and treating very well. You can't limit them on that level, and that's really where the medical conversation comes in, and how do you differentiate the markets and still provide access to people, but also be able to bring on the type of support we need from big alcohol and everybody else that we don't want to scare away with too much, and that's finding that balance. And it really isn't it's in regulation. It's in finding states willing to
find our way back to regulation every time.
Finding states that are willing to really sit and listen, and I think. Luckily in Colorado they were, and we got unlimited milligram caps on the medical side, and we were able to sell unlimited packaged medical for years, as long as it was dosed probably, and you could break it up into,
sure.
It's still 10 milligrams on the medical side. So if you look at our 500 milligram drink,
a lot of servings there.
We have a dosing cap that we have made by Drug Plastics. Literally, dude, it's like the first line for the 500. It's like down there. It's 10 milligrams.
10 milligram thing's ridiculous, but we don't have to go down that rabbit hole.
The product testing on that 500 milligram is a ruthless day. You can't even swish it around and spit it out without getting about 15 milligrams.
That happens with the 5 milligram beverages for me. That shows you how much I consume or how much a lightweight I am. I mean, I'll do. I don't even do product testing anymore, because I was like, I can't do this anymore. I got too much stuff going on.
100%. But yeah, so back to the point of that high milligram. I mean, we still sell syringes on the medical side, packed with 900 milligrams in every one, and we have customers that go in and will buy freaking 15 of them. On the medical side every week, because that's what they need to get through what they're going through. Yep. So it's a fine balance.
I think you also have to be careful, because we've seen in Florida, for example, through THCV and the ban. It's like one of the problems that we run or find ourselves into is CBN's banned in Nevada,
which is we can't even do one of our. So we own a facility in Nevada, and we literally can't do one of our Keef Life products, which is our highest selling one, which is the CBD CBN THC drink. Because of that, it's asinine, and that's obviously kind of shifting gears into the legislative session now and everything that's going on. The biggest fear I think all of us have in something this wide brushstroke that's happening is the minor cannabinoid just issue, and both sides. And I try to speak as much as I can. The regulated industry relies on what's done here at MC and at other minor cannabinoid hemp producers for everything outside of THC. It's
I think there's a lot of education on what the top three are CBN, CBC, THCV, and then you got CBD and CBG. Those are grown on the ground, just so everyone knows. Yeah. CBN's made from traditionally Delta 8. You can make it from Delta 9 too, but Delta 8's cheaper, so you make it from Delta 8. So the boogeyman Delta 8, and then tetracannabinol is either made from CBDV that's grown on the ground, converted over through the same processes, and then CBC is another whole can of worms. So.
And all of them have tremendous therapeutic values that can't be lost in some type of overarching swipe at the
most
industry.
of the acids, the CBDA, CBGA are made in a similar manner. There you can do some water extraction tech, but it makes them incredibly more expensive. And those we haven't even got to those. I mean, we have what we call a cancer blend, air quotes, and we don't sell it. We give it away, and it removed one of my friend's stage 4 liver cancer in a month.
That's crazy.
CBDA, CBGA, and CBC. They've all been shown to have anti-tumor properties. So we threw it into a bottle and gave it out to people that wanted it. So, I mean, I won't sell it because I'll probably get in trouble. But, it's been, we sent out 3 different, people that hear about it. So we have like 15, people that take it. So it's these things are really cool. And unfortunately, some of the regulations overarching. And I get it. You guys know I get it. Like Delta 8 was scary, right? And, now it's a little bit less scary. So,
and I think that's part of it is that we just can't look at it and throw the baby out with bathwater with anything. And there has to be rational conversation. And I think the quicker we get to the state level regulatory, that protection can start coming in because we see it. I mean, it's protected in the states that we've regulated hemp and we've regulated some states, Nevada, not so much. But,
Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Nevada.
I still can't believe we can't sell fucking CBN. And
I didn't know it. A very large MSO as a customer, say, hey, can you guys send it here? I'm like, I don't think so. And they reached out and they go, no THCV here.
And it's crazy. I mean, Colorado, there's obviously in the last session, we all wish that the milligram had been differentiated and there wasn't the fight that had come out of, the regulated side against it. But the fact that, there was the crack in the door that was opened up to where now at my licensed facility, we can produce hemp products. I can't use the same machinery still, which is insane.
We can fix that too.
No, we're working on that one right now. But it shows that there is some understanding. And I think, the more conversations I'm having with the guys and girls that I've been building the regulated industry with for 15 years, people are getting it. They're understanding it. It's not the boogeyman. It's not going to come and rip away all the sale. I mean, especially if it's done right and regulated. Throwing unregulated CBD products in a gas station right across the street from a dispensary that's still trying to regain its CapEx, that's going to be a fight for a long time.
Yeah, of course.
But obviously with proper regulation, that's not going to be an issue. And in most states, like we talked about Tennessee, Kentucky, there's never going to be a dispensary across the street because they're never going to legalize
those 54 licenses in Kentucky are not going to do very well. No offense to them, or whatever. Then it's 50 something.
Yeah, the medical.
Yeah.
It's a model that at the end of the day, everybody had to participate in because it was our only pathway. I mean, when we started in 2010. Colorado was the first to regulate anything. I mean, I remember waiting in line at the dog track with my brother for 5 hours to submit a stack of documents. Literally, we had freaking dollies. And I was only 29 and he was 27. Wow. I was looking at other people that were older. I'm like, Jesus, that's what 10 years of shit looks like. Home Depot carts packed with boxes. I'm like, who the fuck's going to go through all this? And it took them a year and a half to issue licenses.
Yep. Well, I mean, what do you guys, given that we found this way down the conversation hole, but what is the big pushback still? I mean, obviously I hear it, but it's interesting to hear from y'all's perspective.
I think it's the online sales and just shipping into the states that that are already regulated, especially the ones that have had huge CapEx hits. Just looking at it still as competition, which it is competition. I mean, at the end of the day, and just not being on the same level and not being able to compete on that side. And part of that is just the state regulatory bodies too. I mean, a lot of them, like in Illinois, you can't produce a hemp product and sell a hemp product online to compete against the other people. You have to operate within this highly regulated industry that's, overtaxed.
It's a doozy of a document in Illinois.
Yeah. I think it's also how people are philosophically thinking about the Farm Bill and the kind of trickle-down effect of it.
You mean the word loophole?
I'm talking more about people using the Farm Bill to whether something is legal or prohibited. And what we're involved with some efforts right now where it's like, let's talk about what's permissible as hemp, talk about what the Farm Bill regulates and what should be left downstream to various state agencies or other federal agencies, and create a little bit more nuance to it so that we're not making a decision as to whether something is either legal or not.
Yeah, flip the switch.
Yeah, I think it's almost impossible. I mean, and at the end of the day, the biggest issue with the Farm Bill is it's not a great path to legalization. It's what we have right now, thank God, and it's kicked open this opportunity for everybody. But at the end of the day, it's a bill that renews every 5 years. It doesn't deal with products. It doesn't deal with a lot of the issues that we really need to deal with. Luckily, it has opened the conversation at federal level, though, and the fact that it has grown to the size that it has, and it's brought in real industry like the beverage industry. means that we have real conversations that can happen in these coming sessions to actually create long-term legalization efforts and stop using the term hemp and regulate it and just call it cannabis and call it what it is. And I think that's, for me, what's been the greatest thing that the hemp industry has done is really kick open that conversation that these lawmakers were not willing to have. I mean, let's figure out, I've been doing this since I joined NCI in 2010. We formed Attach in 2014 because I wasn't super happy with the direction that NCI was going on with the Republican side. They didn't have any conversations with them. So we went in through Attach and we started working with McConnell's office in Kentucky on the Farm Bill back then, just to get, it was the only conversations they were having.
Get something done.
The only conversations they were having on cannabis was hemp. And so it was like, all right, rope, not dope, baby, here we go. And I spent time down in Kentucky and Lexington at the university with guys like Brian Furnish, bringing seeds in from Australia, and that, it was cool to be there during those moments. It was cool to be there, obviously, and with Attach, our primary purpose from day one, shifting to that, was medical access on the East Coast. We started it, and, being Philadelphia based, there was literally no medical access on the East Coast. We pushed the initiatives in New Jersey, New York, in Pennsylvania, in Maryland, in Florida, and worked on all of those. During a 6-year period, we were able to open up a ton of access to medical products. And that was really my primary vision, getting behind it and really working on at the federal level, was just how do we open up the East Coast to at least get these lawmakers on both sides of the aisle to even talk about getting any access to cannabis.
Right.
So it's been, and I think getting out of that grind is now, it's like, all right, you need to have real conversations because it is one plant. I mean, at the end of the day,
it's the only plant in the world that I know that's defined by a percentage.
Yeah, exactly.
of one of the molecules that it produces.
And nobody wants to convert THC when you can grow a 36% plant and just extract it on a single swipe. We're forced to do it right now because that's where it is. And I think that's the beauty, is these conversations have opened up. There is pathway now that we didn't have before. It's through different channels than I think anybody would have thought 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But who the hell cares? The conversations are happening in DC. They're happening about legalization. We've got big industry behind us, so let's go.
I think the easiest way to I have my own opinion about the rescheduling thing. I think it's 2 years out, at least. I think it's kind of fugazi.
It's a fight right now. I mean,
there's how many comments? 200,000 or something like that?
Not only the comments, but the overturning of the Chevron deference.
Yeah, it's a huge problem in there.
It's going to be.
I wasn't even going to go down that road.
It's going to be a challenge for sure. And, we expect litigation. We've already geared up for it. It's going to be a fight. There's no way it's going to get done this year.
No way.
It's going to get kicked next year for sure. And at that point, I would say, based on what I'm seeing at these press conferences and everything, there's probably going to be a change at the executive branches by that point. I'm not sure.
I don't know how it got this bad. We might not want to go.
That snowballed real quick.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Yeah. We'll be at the RNC on Sunday though. So
I mean, the funny thing is, with Attach, we held the first cannabis convention ever at a major convention in 2016 in Philadelphia at the DNC that year. Obviously, everybody thought that it was going to be a landslide victory on the Democratic side, and clearly it was not. So, it's been crazy to watch it all go the way it has. But I'm actually really optimistic, regardless of who gets elected next year, just due to the fact that this is a category that cannot be denied.
A lot of engagement.
Cannabis is here to stay. The more of these, soccer moms and everyday people that pick up cannabis drinks are able to get a little vape pen and try it and realize
4 votes.
This isn't the devil's lettuce, We're moving in the direction.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially in the beverage category. I mean, I had a bunch of non-cannabis, non-hemp executives over to my office recently, and opened up a beverage right in the middle of the meeting. I didn't tell anyone that it was cannabis. Halfway through, I start offering them to others, and I did tell them at that point.
I was wondering if you drugged. I was going to say
I'm like, damn, remind me to check my drink.
Fortune 500 exec board. I didn't just drug them all.
And he's Vertosa, so he's got the little guys.
The little ones, yeah.
I do have some stories about stuff like that.
It's 100th of the size, too. No, but it's like to be able to do that and not have it feel stigmatized and everyone feel, even if you're historically anti-cannabis, like to feel comfortable around it is a really, really big opportunity. And I think it's opening the door for a lot of these conversations, even on the Hill,
Yep.
where it's just like, it's like, yeah, I don't agree with alcohol either. So,
And this is an alternative and nobody can die from it.
Yeah.
I guess we can talk about it.
Yeah, we can talk about it. And it's called hemp, don't forget.
It's called hemp. We're not talking about legalized marijuana here.
Not crazy, let the DEA do their thing. I think, it's, obviously we come from different paths and all three of us have become friends, or me, friends of you two, I guess specifically. You guys have known each other probably for forever, but, I welcome these conversations, and I get to have more conversations with the marijuana people. Some of them still probably won't talk to me or probably don't like me, but that's all right.
They'll get to like you.
It's a tough putt for some people, but how do we can finish up with for the people that still, and we could just say hemp beverages or whatever you want. You guys know I make vapes and all that stuff, but for the people that still think it needs to be in a dispensary, what is the message to them? There's still a lot of, weirdly enough, there's a lot of prohibition towards hemp now, obviously. Someone gave Mary Miller that amendment, and I'm almost confident I know it came from a cannabis or a marijuana company, regulated marijuana company. So, how do we convince the people that think it has to be in a dispensary? Because I just think that's a very 0-1 approach, and you guys have become very flexible. So,
I think it starts with what we talked about at the beginning, and having operated now in probably the oldest markets for as long as I have, and seen them all cap out and begin to decline. The only way to continue to build the whole overall industry is to allow these low dose drinks and accept them. Not just drinks, honestly, even looking at vape pens and other things like that, potentially providing vapes are tough, obviously in the regular system, but just it's access points, and it's creating new customer bases that don't currently exist. Because at the end of the day, it's tapped right now. The industry needs an injection. And it also needs some deregulation, and I think this is an avenue that both of those can come through.
Yeah, second all that. Just more conversations like this, more people coming together. We're all fighting for the same plant, and at the end of the day, Congress is confused, and they see a lot of people talking from different angles about the same thing. And so as we kind of work into the future, there are different groups that have different ideas about how to meet Congress where they are. And some of those proposals or ways that they think to start those conversations might cause other groups to recoil. But I think it's important to keep an open mind and approach those groups and be like, why are you proposing it that way? Yeah. I know, speaking from the beverage side, we know that there's a lot of receptivity with alcohol partners about coming in with a certain cap. And that cap is not the ideal, but it is a starting point because it's meeting people where they're at and where they're comfortable with the product. And we do have a long vision. We've been at this for a long time. So if we can get that incremental step, then we could immediately start talking about the next step.
It's the crack in the door. And that's really, I think, anytime you're looking at getting something done in Congress, especially something as monumental as legalizing cannabis, it starts as a seed. And you've got to continuously water it. But once it gets out of the ground, it can start to really grow. And that's where we're at right now. I think we've still got a lot of watering to do, but the door has been cracked. We just have to make sure that nobody comes and steps on it. And, I think these conversations are great ways to do it, getting coalitions together, forming coalitions like we're looking to do right now on the beverage side to make sure that, this crack that's happened doesn't get slammed shut. And from that, there will be avenues of everything else too. Right. But it's going to take something, I believe, like Beverage and Big Alcohol getting behind it to really make sure that this door stays open.
I agree 100%. Yep. Vote no on Mary Miller's amendment.
Well, unfortunately, it's not as simple as voting no. Right? It's like
I'm talking about all the Congress members that watch this podcast.
Podcast number 3 is what you said.
Podcast number 3, vote no on Mary Miller's amendment.
And I think there is some really good conversation to be had once it gets to the Senate about adjusting this thing if it does make it through in the House. I think that there's going to be really good conversation, and the beauty is there's going to be conversation in the Senate about cannabis and about legalizing it because they're going to have to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's sitting there, and so
I can already guarantee there's been a lot of conversation.
yeah.
It still might be called hemp, but there has been a lot of conversation at the Capitol.
there's a lot going on, man, more than ever before. And
There's a lot of tug of war going on up there.
You know, the beauty is though they're talking about cannabis and they're not talking about it in a totally negative way anymore. So
Yeah, they still let us into their offices. You know, I think you guys have witnessed the same thing and experienced the same thing. So they haven't told us to go away yet, which is good.
No.
Well, and the best way to think about the Miller Amendment is like you got your first bookend that's put out there. And now with the Senate side, we're trying to draw that other bookend as far away as possible.
And then find that center
And then
balance,
find the
which
middle.
is the way it works.
I think, and I said this in the last podcast with Philip and Bob, is like, you know, at the end of the day, it sucked because I watched it live and I also heard about the en bloc about 10 minutes before it happened. I had to Google what an en bloc was, but you know, a month later, I was like, thank God it happened because it did bring a lot of people together and also showed the people that aren't involved in policy how quickly everything can go away. I mean, $30 billion eradicated with the Miller Amendment. So we know personally through our lobby channels, you know, no one's happy with it, which is good. So that means there's a negotiation on the table. So
it's going to happen. There's no way it
100%.
can stand the way. And like I said before, I mean, at the end of the day, the regulated industry relies upon a lot of the things the Miller Amendment would destroy right now.
I'm not even sure if you could grow CBD biomass really because it's a total THC CBD.
It's very difficult.
Everything would be non-compliant.
Yeah, well, and even if you did, I mean, are you really going to use the regulated space in an indoor grow to grow CBD
Well, yeah,
when you can grow high THC
Right.
that still is 60% of the market?
Right.
You know, it's just economic. There's nothing economically that makes sense about it. So,
well, absolutely. Thanks, guys, for being here, and thanks for us coming together too, and the two major industries, and looking forward to working together with, I guess, on Congress and in the beverage space.
everywhere, man.
Yeah, everywhere. All right, this is episode 3 about the beverage industry. Thanks, everyone, for watching.